The next example is related to Azure DNS records. I think this is quite a useful example, even for real world, real day-to-day work. I have had, in my experience, used Azure DNS records. I had to configure them. I had to create Azure DNS record set. So I think this example is not only useful for the exam itself, but also in industry as well. So for this we have, so company wants to release a new web application. In our case, it's called transportation application, and it is deployed using app service in Azure. And it will be available to users of apptransport.com domain. While the company that is doing this work has already purchased this domain, and you configure it. Actually, you configure the apptransport.com Azure DNS zone and delegate it to Azure DNS. Now, you need to ensure that web application can be used by using this domain name, and you decide to use PowerShell task for it. And so they ask you what command you're going to use for it. And so you can expect to get the command line like here. So the command lines, because there are two, you need to set two DNS record sets, and you will be given usually four choices to fill in the missing slots. So we have a new AZ-DNS record set. You're gonna need to set the name, the record type for each of them. And if we break this into small commands, and let's see actually first what are the choices that we're gonna have. So for the name, we either use @ either we use the domain name, or we use www.apptransport.com or application cz.azurewebsites.net. For the record type, we need to see which one we need. If we need an A record, if we need an AAA record, a TXT, or a CNAME record. You can pause the video here and try to see what would be your choices, and then we can go to the next slide and see which is the correct answer. I have highlighted them here, and you also have the use case above, so that you can have in mind everything. This is what I suggest you to do for the exam as well. You cannot really bring a pen and a sheet of paper, but they allow you to draw on your screen. So if this is easier for you, it doesn't take much time, then try to make a schema, and it will be easier afterwards to find the correct answers. So for the DNS record set name, actually for both, you're going to use @, because actually the thing is that, so you need to create an A record that points to the IP address of the app service that hosts the web application. And because you need your application to be accessed using the apptransport.com domain name, then you need to use a special name that represents the root of the domain. So keep this in mind. Then you need to use an A record type, because the public IP address of the app service is an IPv4 address. All right. Then after that, you'll need to create an additional TXT record. So it's this one. And in case you wondered why you need a second PowerShell command, This is the answer. So you're gonna need to create an additional txt record that points to applications.azurewebsites.net, and this record is needed by the app service to verify the custom domain name for the app service. And because you want your application to be accessible by apptransport.com domain name, then you need to use @special character name that represents the root of the domain. Because actually, if the domain is not verified, then the application will not be able to use it. Then you should not use, so for DNS record set name here, you should not use company. So the examples we have seen here, www.apptransport.com, neither application cz.azurewebsites.net, because you need to configure a DNS record for the root of the domain. If you use any of these values, you're going to get a DNS record similar to, for example, apptransport.com.apptransport.com, and this is not what you want. Also, you're not going to use for a record type, because this record type is used for IPv4 addresses, and here you need to create a record for an IPv4 address. Also for CNAME, you shouldn't use this record type, because in the first step, as we mentioned, you used an IPv4 address, and CNAME cannot contain an IPv4 address as the value for the DNS record, and this record type only allows fully qualified domain names. And second thing, you need to create a DNS record to verify the app service custom domain. So for this you are required to use, so this is a requirement, and it will be useful in your real life as well. If you want to verify a domain name, then you are required to use a txt record for this verification and not a CNAME. So all the correct answers, if we sum them up, will be, so for the DNS record set name, you're gonna need an @ for both of them, @ symbol, and then for the record type, for the first, you're gonna need an A that points, so an A record type, because it will point to the IP address of the app service, so this one, and then you're gonna use a record type txt, because you want to verify the custom domain you are using for this app. Let's also see what the documentation says on this topic. If you have an Azure subscription, either a test one or one for educational purposes or whatever, you can go and at least have a look at how it looks like. Unfortunately, I don't have one that I can use for this training. But what I can say is that I have recently had to verify a custom domain, and I noticed it's quite intuitive. Even if you don't know all the steps to follow, you're gonna see in the UI everything you needed in order to configure the right and to add the right record set. So you're gonna have to go here to left navigation, and you're gonna go to custom domains. You're gonna add your custom domain here. I don't see an add button, but I can assure that there is one in the latest version. And then you're gonna see that the domain is not verified. So you're gonna understand that you need to verify it first. And actually they will let you know once you try to verify the domain, you're gonna see a button here, and they will let you know what fields you're gonna have to add for your DNS zone. So actually you don't really need to remember all these command lines, but it's important to understand why you have to do this. All right, so as it's said here, so create the record. You're going to create an A record using this command, the same one we saw previously. So new AZ-DNS record set. The name is at symbol, which points once again to the root domain, and record type A. Of course, you can go and check the other parameters, zone name, resource group name. You're going to have to indicate this one as well, and so on. And so because we have an IPv4 address, we're going to need a record type. There's a given important information here that the A record must be manually updated if the underlying IP address for if actually the IP address for the web app changes. So this don't forget this if it's your case, and then you're gonna need to verify your domain. So you're gonna need to create a TXT record. So a thing to remember is that app service uses this record only at configuration time to verify that you own the custom domain, and after you have verified it, you can safely delete this TXT record, because once it's validated, it's fine, you can delete it. Another thing maybe to remember here is that when you want to verify your custom domain and your domain has a certificate, you're gonna need, so if you want to secure your domain, you're gonna need to add your certificate as well. But maybe that's for another question, if it will show up for this exam, which I'm afraid is not the case. So just an extra information. All right. And then we go to the PowerShell command, and we see the same command, AZ-DNS record set. We need to give the name, which is an at record, and the record type, which is txt. And then why the CNAME record is not the right choice? Because as you can see here, and it's also important to know, if your domain is already managed by Azure DNS, then you're going to need to follow this example in order to create a CNAME record for, in this case, contoso.azurewebsites.net. All right, and then this is also nice to see and to verify how you validate that the records you have created are correctly created. So you're going to do an NS lookup, and you're going to have here all the informations, the IP address, and so on. This is quite useful. All right, so this is it for this example. I'm going to stop the video here.